Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
This is Triple Play, that podcast where we throw away our lives for some hookers and blow, because this week we watched Chuck, the movie.
Written by Jeff Feuerzig, Jerry Stahl, Michael Christopher, and Liev Schreiber.
Directed by Philippe Falardeau. Falardeau? Close enough.
And released on May 5th, 2017, in theaters. 2016 at a
September 26th, I think?
September 2nd, 2016 in Venice.
Venice Film Festival.
Some film festival, yeah. Venice Film Festival.
This movie was
Bad.
interesting.
It sucked. I hated it. This is the worst movie I've watched in the past couple months, and I watched Predators in the past couple months.
I wouldn't put this below Predators in terms of film quality. In terms of boredom, yeah, this would be below Predators. I was really bored during a lot of this movie, which is a bummer because Chuck Wepner actually has a pretty interesting life story that they somehow diluted a lot for this movie. But basically,
you're glad you knew the story going in, because if you didn't,
you would be confused.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of things in this movie left up to innuendo that aren't explicitly stated. And I think we're going to go through it and talk about some of those moments.
Yeah, I think a main problem with this movie is that the people making it knew the story very well. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you know something really well and you're trying to explain it to someone who knows nothing about it, and you're like, well, it's simple. It's just this, that, and that. And you're like, duh. And the other person's like, has no idea what you're talking about. That was this movie. But maybe we should just detail who Chuck is and why he's related to Rocky.
Yeah, well, we talked about this in our Rocky episode, but if you skipped that for some reason and are listening to this, Chuck Wepner was the guy the Rocky story was ostensibly based on. Sylvester Stallone denies that he based it on that, but Sylvester Stallone doesn't deny that he did see Chuck Wepner fight Muhammad Ali. So basically,
days before he wrote the original draft of Rocky.
Yeah. Chuck Wepner was basically a nobody who Muhammad Ali, heavyweight champion of the world in 1975, was like, I want to fight a white dude. And Chuck Wepner happened to be the guy.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And then after I watched this, I sort of went back and read some more that I guess confirmed this real life. But I didn't know that this was supposed to be a race thing, and that's why they brought Wepner back. Mm-hmm. Right.
And so Muhammad Ali fights Chuck Wepner. Chuck Wepner is the only person to have gone all 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali, because
right.
He typically knocks people out in round 5.
And Ali and pretty much everyone thought that no one thought Wepner was going to do this.
Yeah.
Probably not even himself. And then when he went the distance, I think is the term.
Yeah. It's the term they all use.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think he actually made it to the end of the 15th round.
No, he didn't.
19 seconds.
Yeah. That part was true to life, supposedly. Yeah. A lot of this movie is fictionalized, which I want to touch on what this movie does and says, as much as I hate using that word, about fiction near the end, because I think there is interesting stuff going on here in this movie as this relates to how Rocky, this fictional story, became huge and Chuck Wepner's true story or history was buried.
I mean, there are very interesting directorial choices that are made in this movie as well that kind of led me to believe that it almost feels like everybody who made this movie was in on some big kind of conspiracy, not some sort of inside joke that,
There's a line in this movie it's an inside joke why he sends them coconuts or whatever. Like
you said, they all know the story, but they're not telling
it.
Everything.
And they're in fact telling things that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of this that seems very fictionalized, and I didn't confirm all of it, because there really isn't that much info out there about Chuck Wepner.
I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of directorial and creative choices made in the making of this movie that to me seemed almost like they were playing up the fictional aspect of this movie. They were playing up that this was a movie, especially a lot of Chuck's lines at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of them at the beginning, just the choice to have a narrator doesn't necessarily mean, that they're playing up this fictional aspect, but the way that he's narrating it, the word, the actual words that he says when he's narrating it sounds very casual and like, oh, I just met Chuck Wepner at a bar and Chuck's telling me his story over a glass of vodka, which apparently is his favorite thing to drink because he orders it at literally every bar in this movie.
Yeah, right. I agree with that. And I think a lot of the scenes of this movie I guess we can just start with this because the narration is right at the beginning. I wish this movie didn't have a narrator.
It reminds me of Blade Runner in that aspect because the original Blade Runner, when it was released in theaters, had a narrator. And then when Ridley Scott went back and recut it, and the director's cut doesn't have a narrator, and most people agree that the non-narrator version is actually the superior version because it tells the story in a more effective way.
Right. And this one, I don't know if you agree with this, but I would imagine you do, is that a lot of the weight of like a lot of these scenes is taken out when it's like Chuck looking back at his past and he was like, haha, that was a great moment and stuff like that, you know?
Well, I don't 100% agree with that. I agree with it in this case because they're super inconsistent about the narrator. There's like long stretches in the middle of the movie where there's like no narrator. Then he pops up at the end of the scene and he's like, haha, that was a great moment, wasn't it? But at the beginning, it sounds like very deliberate where he's like, okay, so like this is where I am now, but let me tell you where I started from. Let me tell you like the major life events that led me to this point where I'm sitting in a ring fighting in a freaking bear.
Yeah. But I mean, just the inclusion of a narrator, it turns this into a story. It turns this into metafiction. And I'm not surprised because Liev Schreiber is also responsible for the Scream franchise, which I don't know if you've ever seen Scream 2, but the opening like 10 minutes of Scream 2 is like one of the most brilliant examples of metafiction in movies that I've ever seen. And I know that sounds stupid.
Yes.
But like it is.
Liev Schreiber also played Sabretooth in X-Men Origins Wolverine, so this man is responsible for many things.
That opening scene where the lady gets killed in the movie theater in Scream 2 is amazing, though. I love that scene. But anyway,
I mean, if you like that, you should honestly watch the movie Blazing Saddles because that movie is.
I've watched it.
Okay, that movie's full of that.
I don't like it,
especially at the end.
I've watched the entire thing and I don't like it one bit.
Well, that's a bummer. I think it's hilarious.
But it has Gene Wilder.
You should watch Naked Gun too because Naked Gun is full of that as well. But Naked Gun does it a lot more subtly and a lot more cleverly than Blazing Saddles. And I think Naked Gun are some of the best comedies that have ever been made.
All right, sure.
Partly because Leslie Nielsen plays everything completely straight like a dramatic actor, even though they called for a comedic actor to play the role and Leslie Nielsen came in and just played it completely straight and it's hilarious.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. But I mean, just the narrator in this movie turns it into a movie about telling stories.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that movie Bedtime Stories with Adam Sandler, which I've watched as well.
Should have got Adam Sandler to play Chuck.
Well, apparently Liev Schreiber's always wanted to play Chuck Wepner. As soon as they announced that they were making this script, in 2011, by the way, it took him 5 years to make this movie, he wanted to play Chuck, and he got it.
Yeah, and I don't know how true this is. This is a Sylvester Stallone, rewriting history type moment, but Liev Schreiber was like, yeah, I was familiar with Chuck. I just didn't know that he inspired Rocky. Really now?
Press X to doubt.
Oh, God. But right, it starts off with this narration. Starts off with him fighting this bear, and he's like, all right, I know you're wondering how I got here.
Yes, record scratch.
But I'm not going to tell you.
Freeze frame.
It all started when I was 15 and some kid punched me, and I realized I could take a hit.
Thor Ragnarok actually does this in a way better way, because Thor Ragnarok opens the same way where, Thor's like, I know you're wondering how I got you. Except instead of a narrator, it's the actual Thor character, and he's talking to, it seems like he's talking to you, the audience, I bet you're wondering how I got you to fight this big demon. And then he does the fight, and then at the end of the fight, it's revealed he's actually telling someone this story. And I think that works in a way more effective way than this, where we get that kind of narration, but it's actually an omnipotent, godlike narrator.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, he cuts back to taking a punch as a kid and shrugging it off, and that's when he's like, I realized I could take punches like nobody else.
Bleeds a lot, though.
Yeah, they call him
The Bayonne Bleeder.
The Bayonne Bleeder. And actually the original title of this movie, and I think in like some territories
in
it
the
was
UK
released.
it was The Bleeder.
The Bleeder. And I think that's actually a better title than just Chuck.
Yeah, as do I. A far better title. Not only because Chuck is the name of a more famous than this TV show, but just like
which is
Chuck,
way better than this as well, I should note.
But yeah.
But also Chuck is super nondescript. And
right.
Anyway. He hated the name, apparently. The Bayonne Bleeder. But once a name sticks, you can't change it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as we go through this, we can touch on where Stallone... And this is interesting because this whole movie is actually really interesting because this is, it's based on this story of this guy's life that Sylvester Stallone took and turned into Rocky. And now there's a movie being made with callbacks to Rocky.
Not only that, this movie features footage from Rocky, and it opens, the very first shot of this movie is actually a quote from and Rocky. It fades out and it fades in to show you that it's attributed to Rocky.
Right, and I know we talked about Rocky bleeding into real life in the last episode, but this is really freaking weird and like it starts off with this quote from this fictional character, and I guess I'll just pause at this right now because I thought this was actually really interesting in a thematic way, is that this movie is all about, rejecting fictionality as this means to legitimacy or greatness or whatever, right? Because Rocky was the one who, through this fictional story, became this hero, and more people know who Rocky is than know who Chuck Wepner is. Chuck Wepner's life, the true events were buried, right? They weren't fictionalized, so they're not important. And there's so many moments in this movie that build that all up. At the end, when he throws the picture or whatever, of him and Rocky, I don't know. I felt like, because a lot of this movie was disjointed and like sucked to me, but like there was this thematic thread of like, all right, there's this guy who is aspiring to be this character who was based on him, but at the end he has to reject fictionality, and that's when his life gets better.
Well, I mean, I think it's more like he realizes his life gets better when he stops trying to be someone else and just...
Right. I mean, that's what I meant to say.
But
that someone else is a fictional character based on him, which is kind of mind-bending and cool. But I still hate it.
And weird.
The fight is 35 minutes into this, so why don't we build up to that? Why don't we talk about how this... Because, I mean, I thought the fight was going to be at the end. Just knowing what Rocky is,
I think... See, my problem with them putting the fight at 35 minutes is that it's such an awkward position to put the fight. I can see this movie working if they start with that fight. I can see this movie working if they end with that fight. Putting it at 35 minutes is like such a baffling choice to me.
It's a bold move.
It doesn't pay off because you get to the fight. And the thing about this fight is that this fight is the inspiration for Rocky. And this is the fight that one is supposed to revive his career, and two doesn't, and three leads him down this long dark path.
Right.
So in my mind, either you start the movie with this fight.
Yeah. To me, it needs to start with the fight.
Because it's this huge pivotal event in his life.
Right. Or not 35 minutes in, like 5 or 10.
Or you can throw it at the end, show this movie as like Chuck's life and then end with the fight, which in my mind would be weaker. A recent movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, did something similar where they ended with the Live Aid concert, which was not the end of Queen's career, and leaves you at the end of the movie feeling very awkward because it's supposed to feel very final because it's the end of the movie, but it's actually like, no, but there's more after this, and Queen made music for 4 more years and did all these concerts in that time and made some of their best music in that time, in my opinion. And like, so they end with this, and so for the same reason, I feel like ending this movie with the fight would be like, but there's so much more.
I've heard mixed things about that movie.
It's fun if you're a Queen fan, and the acting is superb.
All right, unlike this movie, I'm going to say right off the bat, the acting in this sucked. Even from Liev Schreiber, I think.
I think Liev Schreiber is the best actor in this movie.
I don't. I think the guy who plays Sylvester Stallone.
The guy who plays Sylvester Stallone is by far my favorite actor in this movie.
Schreiber was one of the producers as well, we should mention, which is interesting, like, 'cause he starred in it, and, producers aren't directors, but,
Right.
like, the fact that he didn't act well, in my opinion, in his own movie, like, I don't know. What are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Sylvester Stallone could pull it off. What are you doing, Liev?
The build-up to this fight does establish, like, kind of what a scumbag Wepner is. Yeah. He's not like
flirting.
A good dad or husband.
Yeah, he's flirting with other women
More
in front of his
than
wife.
flirting with them.
Well, we only see flirting. And again, this is one of the things that's left to innuendo because his wife says that she caught him with his hands down in another woman's panties.
Which is a figure of speech, but also not,
Yeah. But it's like we don't actually see that. All we see is that him taking some other lady who's not his wife out to dinner. And then his wife shows up and is like, yeah, I'm married to this man. Yeah, well, the girl, to her credit, the girl is like, yeah, I'm not about that life. And is getting ready to leave.
She didn't know.
Yeah, she didn't know. And so when she finds out, she's like, well, I'm not about that life. So all credit to her. But then the wife is like, no, sit down. I'm going to tell you something. And she's just like, and gets this whole like tirade from Phil.
Phil, kind of like how Adrian is a male name. Phil,
Well, I think her name is actually Phyllis.
But
who's actually, as I found out, Chuck's second wife. So he was actually married before Phyllis. Divorced, then he married Phyllis, divorces Phyllis, and then he marries Linda, and he's still married to Linda.
Right. I don't know if you had a problem with this, but one of the big things, and especially the scene in the diner, really drove it home that a lot of these characters don't really look like some of the characters do for sure. Chuck for sure. Most of the main characters are absolutely done well in terms of their design, but a lot of just the people hanging out in the background look like they're from the 20-teens and not the 1970s.
It didn't bother me that much.
It bothered me like a lot. Especially this woman in the diner is when I first noticed it. I was like, oh, all right. I mean, this fashion sense, the hairstyle or whatever, not really.
This is supposed to be 75, 74.
Yeah, I guess.
It didn't really bother me too much. I mean, the whole movie is kind of anachronistic in a way, so.
I guess. I mean, it's a story told out of the time that it's occurring.
It is strange that in some instances they wouldn't care about that, especially since there's a very deliberate choice by the director, I think, to use. There is film grain in this movie, and I don't know if that's because he filmed it on film or if it was digital and they added a film grain later.
It was digital. I only read one interview with Liev Schreiber, but it was digital, according to him.
That is like a very intentional choice to make this movie look like it's from the 70s when everything was filmed on film.
Right.
So, kind of interesting there.
Yeah,
they play around with the aspect ratio in this movie quite a bit too, which I thought was interesting. When they get to footage that's supposed to look historical, they swap it to a square aspect ratio, which I thought was an interesting choice. Again, it's supposed to make it feel like all this footage is from the time.
Well, I mean, it in a way touches back to that to fictionality, right? I mean, in broadcast, there's this scene that I kind of liked. It's the first scene where you get it's one of the scenes where you get Chuck's house, and at this point, his match with Ali is being really hyped up by the news and everything.
Right.
And on TV, he says, I forget, they ask him, like, how do you get through the day? And he's like, booze and women or it's some stupid answer like that.
He says, wine, woman, and song.
Right.
I just watched this 3 hours ago.
And his wife gets real mad at this. And he's like, oh, man, like, what's wrong? It was just a joke. And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't have minded if you had said that off camera, but when you say it on TV, it really bothers me.
Yeah.
Right? Really playing up this thing of like, when things are on TV, when they're broadcast, when there's an audience or when there's this medium, I guess, that's when things become important.
Yeah.
This sort of fictionalized, not really fictionalized, but closer to fiction space is when things get important. Kind of like how Rocky's a big deal and Chuck isn't.
Sorry, Chuck.
That's why the decision to like even make this movie is really strange, because it's like about the rejection of fictionality, yet it's like this so fictionalized version. It's like,
well, it's a biopic.
It's a movie. I mean, yeah.
Which I've heard pronounced biopic, but I think biopic is a more like...
I think it's biopic, yeah.
a more reasonable pronunciation. I want to, when we finish talking about the plot, compare this to another biopic I saw recently, First Man, because I think there's a lot of similarities between the two, but I think there's a very specific reason why First Man works and this movie doesn't.
Oh. All right.
But anyway, so essentially Chuck fights Muhammad Ali, and this fight, I mean, there were like clear parallels between this and the fight in Rocky.
Right.
Phyllis is watching from home.
Mind-bending thing that they like inscribe Rocky onto this, whatever. I mean, it's...
The punches are less fictionalized than Rocky.
Well, interestingly, I read that all the punches in this movie are real. Mm-hmm. And Liev Schreiber was like, yeah, this had to be the case because it's a boxing movie. Mm-hmm. And Liev Schreiber is somewhat into boxing, which kind of does make me believe the story of him knowing Chuck. Yeah, but apparently the guy who played Ali was one of his sparring partners, and they like knew how to, they were able to hit each other without like seriously doing damage like on camera, but they were punching each other.
Right. I mean, Stallone did that too in certain scenes where the punches were real, and that him and Mr. T, those were real punches, which is why they were like so beaten, bloody, and why Stallone was standing in the corner doing handstands to get the blood back to his head.
Yeah, I liked this fight though. Like I thought it was probably the best part of the movie, I guess.
Yeah,
except for like when
except for the Stallone pieces,
except for when Don like totally calls out Chuck.
Oh yeah,
that tirade is just amazing.
Yeah, but, Chuck goes through this fight, and then it skips a year, and he gets a call like, "Oh, this movie Rocky's out."
There's a scene of him like it's not him walking out with Phil, but he sees Phil right after the fight.
Yeah,
so that's it's there. And skips ahead a year. And he
goes to see Rocky with Phil.
Right.
He leaves.
In theaters.
Everybody's calling him Champ. Bleeder. Someone calls him Bleeder.
Yeah. He's like, that's me. I'm Rocky. It's my life.
And then basically this is when he starts doing hard drugs.
Well, doesn't he fights Andre the Giant.
That's later on, though. That's after he starts doing drugs, though. That's when his career's down in the pits, and they're like, "We're going to revise your career, man."
Yeah, his coach was one of the worst actors in this. Like
Ron Perlman, he plays Hellboy.
Oh, really?
In the Guillermo del Toro Hellboys.
Yeah.
I mean, he had such a small role in this movie, honestly.
He did, but the acting in this, I mean, it's... A lot of this is I attribute to the director, even though I don't know who the director really is. Like I don't know who that is, but because Naomi Watts is in this. Mm-hmm. Liev Schreiber is at least somewhat good in other things, I guess.
Yeah, Liev Schreiber's in a lot of Wes Anderson movies, and he's pretty great in those.
I don't know, it just all fell flat here to me. I think I had a bigger problem with it than you or really anyone else who watched this, but I think the acting is just really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. I didn't sit there like, man, this acting is taking me out of it, because it didn't.
I totally did.
It didn't take me out of it, and I think bad acting typically does that to me anyway, and I just go, wow, this...
In a way, the feeling I got of it taking me out of the story was all right in this movie of all things, because of like how this touches back to Rocky and how, I don't know, just the thematic stuff. Like, all right, it's okay, it's kind of metafictional, but still. So Chuck basically ruins his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a great life to start off with, but he makes it worse for himself.
Well, he goes to this party and he lies to this guy and tells him he got $70,000 for Rocky, but then his buddy's like, hey, you got $70,000 for Rocky. And he calls his buddy over and he's like, John, you can't tell anyone that.
We meet the IRL Paulie.
Yeah.
And it's John.
Except he's not as much of a scumbag as Paulie is.
He's not.
In fact, I don't think he's a scumbag at all. I think he's a better person than Chuck. At least right up until this point where he tells Chuck to do this cocaine in the toilet.
I mean, most of his scenes, I don't know if you noticed this, but this was funny to me. Most of his scenes are him spurring on Chuck to do cocaine.
Drugs, yeah. I noticed that. I noticed that about 3/4 of the way through the movie. I was like, is John's only role in Chuck's life to get him to do drugs?
In this movie, yes.
If I was the real life John, I'd be like, if I was the real life John and I hadn't just done that, I'd be really upset about it.
Me too. I watched the, what's his name? Prince Harry? And Meghan Markle? I don't know. I kind of watched in the background the movie that was recently made about
What?
them.
There was a movie about him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
shit, how much I know.
And I mean, it wasn't like a big movie or anything, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was any of the real people depicted in that movie, I would have a serious problem with the way I was depicted. Nobody was safe in that. No one. Not even, what's her name? The lady who married into the royal family in 2011 or whatever. Forget her name. I don't follow any of this stuff, but
Yeah, neither do I.
They made her say some real controversial things.
Wow.
Some real classist things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I got it. I mean, they make a weird reference to that in this movie, like, kind of make this Chuck kind of, the movie version of Chuck makes this kind of weird comment about Ali. It's like, Ali was saying all these things like, come on, Whitey, and a couple other words that I won't repeat here. And I'm like, what? What?
I mean, yeah,
like,
I noticed that too.
At
Where they
first
try
I
to
was like,
make
what?
out Chuck to be like the victim of reverse racism or...
Yeah. They try to make him
Yeah.
out to be some sort of like oppressed guy. And I'm like, well, Chuck really like... But part of the reason why this movie doesn't work to me is because they try to make it out like Chuck's just a victim of his circumstances when like really like a lot of this was Chuck's fault.
Yeah, and the way they do that, I kind of get it. Like, deep down, he has a good heart and whatever, but yeah, like, a lot of it was on him.
And I mean,
So like
they do kind of have a moment of this later on when he's like, I got thrown in jail because of my own choices, and that's when I realized that I should stop trying to be Rocky.
This whole redemption arc, though, doesn't necessarily play out. Especially when he walks away with, like, him reconciling with his daughter and, like, you know, I don't know.
Some people get it all.
You know, consequences can be rewritten as long as you do it right.
Well, this movie didn't do it right.
No, they didn't. But yeah, here comes this scene where they're in this club, which made me really wish I wasn't watching this movie with my mother.
Well, so, yeah, to elaborate a bit on that, Keon decided to invite his mother to watch this movie with him.
I didn't know what... I thought it was just going to be a nice, wholesome family movie
Right,
about the
because
man who
it was rated
Rocky.
R.
Rocky was rated...
PG-13.
No, it must have been PG because...
PG, actually, I think you're right.
Because PG-13 came out in, like, 84?
Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing in Rocky that would make me
No.
think it would even need to be PG-13 except the blood and the violence.
No, yeah.
Which I think Creed is rated PG-13. They don't ever drop the prerequisite one F-bomb per PG-13 movie in Rocky.
So they dropped that requisite
this
one
one.
in, like, the first sentence. There's F-bombs, like, left and right in this. But no, there's full nudity in this scene. So.
Well, not full, because we don't see any of the...
upper body nudity. There you go. My bad.
Well, okay, wait, pause. We do come kind of close to seeing full lower body male nudity in this because
later
there's
on,
a scene where Chuck's walking around in tidy whities and you can see.
Well, no, there's a scene where he jumps in the pool. You don't know he's fully naked until he jumps. You see that split second of him jumping in the pool, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh.
so you can see Liev Schreiber's package in this.
So if that's what gets you to go to the no.
If that's what gets you to watch this movie, if that's what gets the blood pumping for you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, there's this scene in the club, and actually I want to mention, like, my dad was in the living room and I was watching this in the dining room, and when this scene came on and there was just like full upper body nudity, and I just minimized the window a little bit and move it to the side, like open Facebook on the right side of the screen.
And then you realize someone posted nudes on Facebook, and no.
Wow, that would suck. Hey guys, just posting my nudes on Facebook. Kind of like that picture I saw once. It was like, I think I saw it on a subreddit called Insane People Facebook, where the guy's like, all right, so in the interest of full transparency, I'm posting all the women I've jacked off to on my friend list in the past month. And he tags all these people, and they're like, what the heck, dude? It's disgusting. He's like, hey man, just trying to be honest. I don't think it was necessary in this case.
Oh, God. Anyway, Chuck really tries to get his life back together, and by really tries, I mean, like...
Just does more cocaine.
Just, like, tries, but also does cocaine while trying.
Not realizing the cocaine's what's causing him to fail. He tries to meet Sylvester Stallone, and eventually he bribes a bartender into telling him when Sylvester's in the building.
Right. But it turns out Stallone wanted to meet him too, which is true to everything we knew about the Rocky story.
And he wanted to give Chuck a part in the second Rocky, which is true to what we found out.
Right.
They way downplay how badly Chuck messes up this audition, though, like a lot. But I want to talk about the guy who's playing Sylvester Stallone, because he nails the voice perfectly.
Yeah, he does.
Number two, he actually looks a lot like Sylvester Stallone.
That he does.
And so...
I mean, he was the best actor in this movie in terms of, like, sheer ability.
In terms of believability, too, because, like... Sylvester Stallone is the only character in this movie who I knew beforehand, and he, like, does a really good job of portraying Sylvester Stallone. So.
Yeah. You think they downplay how much he flubs the audition, though?
Yeah, I do, because he just kind of goes in there and he just... I mean, the thing is, like, the way it's portrayed in the movie is just, like, him, like, forgetting the lines and, like, not having read the script, but, like, from what I read, the real audition, he was, like, high on cocaine... during it and like completely bombed it like hardcore, whereas like in this, the way they portray it in this was just like, oh, he had a bad day, like on a better day he would have done really well.
Yeah, well, it all goes back to that, like trying to make Chuck out to be, if not a victim, then like not totally responsible,
absolving him of his responsibility in this kind of.
But it doesn't work out for him. He there's more to the movie after this, a lot more actually. He tries to get his life back on track, tries to reconcile with his family, but it doesn't work. Eventually, he gets busted for selling drugs.
Yeah, well, he meets, in one of the earlier scenes, he meets Linda. She's a bartender.
Right.
Apparently, they have the same birthday.
Yeah, he tries to, like, hit on her or whatever, but she was the only one who, like, wasn't interested or whatever.
Well, because she, again, to her credit, is like, you have a wife, Chuck.
And at the end, she comes back and she's like, heard you got a divorce.
Yeah, turns out she was just waiting for her opportunity.
But Chuck goes to jail.
Yeah, because he gets
This part, I think, is completely made up for the movie, where Stallone is filming Lockup.
Okay, well, before we get there, I want to talk about the like most hilarious drug deal in history, where the guy just parks at the bar and hogs, and Chuck's like, hang on, I gotta go outside. And he goes outside, the guy rolls down the window, and he's like, all right, man, like, is it good? And he's like, yeah, it's
Chuck's
good.
In the
he
bag.
literally just chucks the cocaine through the window into the car, and it lands on the passenger seat. And the guy's like, sorry, man. And then the cops immediately just surround him. But I just thought it was hilarious how Chuck just casually chucks this cocaine through this window, like, here's the cocaine, dude. But yeah, I think this was made up, this potential second encounter between Chuck and Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I think it was put into the movie, right, as sort of him finally rejecting, like, all right, I don't need to live up to Stallone or Stallone's character.
Oh, well, we should talk about...
Oh, we should talk about Don, his brother.
Well, yeah.
He bails him out.
Before that, before he gets arrested, that day he goes to this parent day for his daughter at the school he's trying to reconcile. And I want to mention how first Johnny is like, hey, you don't look so good, man. He's like, yeah, you're right. And then Johnny's just like, want to do some cocaine?
And Chuck is like, yeah, I think that'll help.
So he does cocaine. He goes to this parent meeting high on cocaine.
Tries to read his...
But that's the thing, is like they like really downplay the effects of the cocaine on his
they
like...
do. They absolutely do.
On his just psyche and his mobility and everything, really. Because he seems to be like perfectly lucid.
I mean, once
you've
done drugs for like years, you're going to start needing more to actually feel the effects.
Right.
But still, you know.
It seems like he's nearly indistinguishable, like, from his non-coked up self.
It just seems like he's like slightly more of a jerk.
Yeah. Blaming cocaine for everything.
But he's a poet throughout all of this.
Twice in the movie.
Thrice.
Thrice?
He reads He reads the poem to Phyllis, and then he like reads slam poetry when he confronts
I forgot about the one to
Ali.
Phyllis.
And now he reads another poem that he wrote for his daughter. And they're not very like good, but you can see he cares.
I mean,
I guess.
Okay.
Seems like he scratched that one out for his daughter on a napkin like 2 minutes before he walked in the room.
Yeah, it's on like a piece of notepad that he ripped off somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, Then his brother bails him out from getting arrested, and then his brother basically tears him a new one in the car.
And then this was nice to see Chuck get beat down a little bit at the end of this. And the best part of this is like the end of his speech. He's like, "By the way, I'm not doing any of this because I like you. I just promised our mother on her deathbed that I would make sure you didn't get into trouble."
That's okay, because they immediately undermine that, because his wife's like, "He's been following your whole career, like literally everything.
Yeah,
dragged us all to the Muhammad Ali battle. Like, you don't appreciate it." And
Chuck has real people who care about it.
The best part about this is when Chuck's like, "I don't know what to say," and then Don goes, "Sometimes you just don't need to say anything, Chuck. Sometimes you just need to shut up." Which is true.
Anyway, Chuck comes out a changed man.
Well, so this bailing out happens, and then Chuck actually has to go to prison, like, for real.
Right.
And then that's when the scene with Sylvester happens, and that's when he has this voiceover. He's like, "Well, I learned that, like, I should stop trying to be Rocky. I wrote letters to my daughter, repaired my relationship with her, wrote letters to Linda too, but she didn't reply." Then as soon as he gets out, Linda's waiting. They're like, "Heard you got divorced," because he gets divorced while he's in jail.
Right. John is actually there, like, the day he gets out of jail. Reminded me a little of the Ocean's 11, scene, the new one. But John is there, and I was like, "Oh God, is John gonna like offer, like, is
cocaine?"
He gonna, yeah, right. I mean, is that what was gonna happen? But no, it wasn't. Anyway, he reconciles with Linda. They get married.
There's a kind of weird scene in the middle of this that I forgot to mention when we got to it, but I wanted to mention when he goes to LA to go to the audition, and he does cocaine while he's driving, but then they make this weird creative choice to, like, show the driving from point of view, and then it, like, speeds up and slows down and speeds up and slows down and feels very out of place.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, yeah, he marries Linda, and then they go to, like, a boardwalk, and he's like, there's a statue of Rocky, and he's like, "Hey, I want to take a picture with it." And they take a picture, and then they walk away, and he kind of chucks the picture away.
Right.
And at the end, it zooms in on the picture, and it's a picture of the real Chuck with the Rocky statue.
Yeah, and then they do this "where are they now" type thing.
Which, like, every biopic does nowadays, basically. Even though, like, really it's not necessary. Bohemian Rhapsody did this at the end. Like, Queen continued making music till Freddie Mercury died.
3 years later. 5 years later, whatever it was.
First Man didn't. Actually, did it? I don't remember if it did.
Right, so what is... I mean, I don't even know what First Man is.
First Man was a biopic about Neil Armstrong.
Okay.
It came out this year. It was directed by Damien Chazelle, who did La La Land, which was a huge movie last year, if you remember that.
Yep.
But First Man does a lot of things similarly to this movie. Like, it makes this creative choice to, like, put film grain over the movie, so it looks like it's pretty old. And I didn't mention this, but, like, in this movie, there's a lot of shaky cam on certain scenes, like when it's filming people. First Man does the same thing, and that's to make it feel more like in the moment, like more, quote, real, right? I think First Man succeeds where this fails, because I think First Man shows more... First, I think it shows more restraint in fictionalizing the story. First off, because, there is almost in this movie an essence of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is a movie, because, especially with Chuck's voiceover at the end, where he's like,
right.
"Now watch this part. This is just like in the movies. I came out, I got the girl, and I repaired my relationship with the daughter."
Yeah. Well, I mean, to any extent, like, even not a biopic, even like a documentary, a movie that calls itself like a documentary is still fictionalized in a way, because they're choosing what to show you. They're choosing the order, and like there's still something rhetorical about all of that. But there's different levels to which it's done for various different reasons.
And the other way in which First Man succeeds, whereas Chuck fails, is that First Man is actually interesting. And that's the thing, is like...
They tried to grab you with that bear, but...
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, a lot of choices that went into this movie are in that fictionalization of Chuck's life, and those choices make the story less interesting, because I do think there is an interesting story about Chuck's life here, because I do think he's a really interesting guy with an interesting story. However, in this movie, they choose to show you selective portions of that life out of order. They do this wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing with the narrator, I guess, because, the whole thing is that this is the guy whose life got turned into Rocky. Right. So they need to, they do this thing with like, well, Rocky was a movie. This is a movie about a real guy, like Keon said. And I think that really, like, kind of actually undermines the movie itself.
completely forgot what I was going to say.
I mean, I think it weakens the movie because, like I said, I think it draws too much attention to the fact that this is a movie.
Well,
first off,
yeah. So I think what you're saying is, well, to me, there's two things going on in this movie. There's the semi-interesting, but also not really. Like, there's thematic stuff that is interesting, right? The whole deal with like how Rocky was this fictionalized story that gained more traction. But like in terms of just you look at the plot and it's done so strangely in this movie, and I think this is kind of what you're getting at of like just plot-wise, just the events that happen are very like it's not a familiar like route for a movie to take. And we mentioned this, like the fight comes 35 minutes in, then there's like all this other stuff, and then,
well, I mean,
I don't know.
Even beyond that, like typically when you structure a movie like this, and when First Man did this, you kind of, when you make a biopic like this, typically what you do is you pick these big moments in the person's life, or the people, or the group, or the event. You pick these big, major events, and you structure the movie around that. You make those occur at certain instrumental pieces throughout the movie, and then you link them together with the in-between events. The way this movie seemed to do it is like, picked out the two big events are Chuck goes to watch Rocky and Chuck fights Muhammad Ali. But there's not really any other moments that feel in this movie like they're big or important. Everything just feels kind of on the same level almost. Yeah. I mean, movies place things chronologically, but typically in a biopic, you place more emphasis on these events that are like really big or important, and then you kind of show how these other things lead up to those events.
Sure.
In this movie, it doesn't feel like there's any sort of build-up. It doesn't feel like, they try to give Chuck this sort of redemption arc, but I feel like that would have actually worked better if they had fictionalized it less.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I don't like that, but there's a part of me that's like that's at least somewhat.
I mean, it's a formula that works.
Well, no,
right?
No. I mean, like what they did in Chuck, I don't like. But there's a part of me that's like that's at least somewhat like kind of brilliant, right? Because this is a movie about this guy who needs to reject becoming this fictional character, so that his movie would feel just more like, I don't know, life, like just a sequence of events that don't matter or don't lead up to anything big. I don't know. That's kind of interesting to me that it does that.
But then at
the same time,
but I almost feel like if they were going to do that, then they should have maybe cut the fight with Muhammad Ali entirely, because that's a huge thing that makes instantly it makes Chuck this larger than life figure, because Muhammad Ali is this guy who, even if you don't know anything about boxing, you know Muhammad Ali, right? And to see Chuck Wepner associated with this character who is like so prevalent in people's minds instantly makes him a larger than life figure. I think if you wanted to do a movie, in my opinion, if you wanted to do a movie where Chuck has to reject becoming this larger than life figure, either you cut that fight entirely or you start right off the bat with that, and then from there lead into kind of the Chuck needs to reject that figure, that kind of version of him that gets built up after that fight.
Well, I don't think you can just cut the fight entirely, because it's part of his life. I mean, like that's why they're making the movie. It's also why Rocky was made. But the fight was, like you said, paid attention to in a lot more detail than a lot of the other scenes.
Right.
Which might have been better if that hadn't been the case. If the fight was just, I don't know, like I'm sure if they did this, would be like, what the hell? Like the fight wasn't big, but I don't know.
Well, but I think like what they should have done was show how the fight builds him into this quote mythical figure, which they kind of tried to do.
But it wasn't really. It was Rocky that did that, and I think they actually do a good job doing that, because there's a scene we skipped over that he goes to Don's house and he's like, "We won! Like I won the Academy Awards! Like I'm Rocky, man! Like And
Don's like, "I don't care." but like that starts with the fight, though. The fight is technically the instigating event that starts that, because without the fight, Rocky doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm somewhat playing devil's advocate here. I do think the fight needs to be like 10 minutes in, especially because all the stuff leading up to it was damn boring.
Well, I think that in my mind, this movie can work if it starts with the fight. They show how that fight starts this chain of events that leads to Rocky, that leads to him, that leads to this kind of mythical version of Chuck being created, and Chuck trying to be
live
this
up to that
legend that exists, and then he needs to realize that he's not that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I actually think that doing it that way would require fictionalizing the movie less than they actually did.
Probably. I mean, I do think they're like thematically there's some interesting stuff going on here, and there's a good movie. Like if this had just been restructured or done a little differently, I think this could have been good.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
as
I don't
it
think I
is-
hate this movie as much as you do. I actually don't even think this movie sucks. I just think it's wasted potential.
Yeah. I mean, I might be downplaying how much I actually do think it sucks because I do think it like really sucks. But I mean, I don't know. The one interesting thing to me is, did you notice how the music was done really similarly to Rocky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a part where they like directly used the Rocky theme, which was like
Yeah.
intentional.
Yeah, well, that was him walking into this bar, and they're like, "Hey, it's the guy who inspired Rocky. Let's play this." Because that was we always mentioned this. It was diegetic
yeah.
sound, yeah. But like the actual soundtrack itself has sort of just this like one motif that's played at the beginning and end of several scenes, which is very similar to Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I have is, do you know how many Russians there were in the credits?
No,
It was like,
I didn't watch the
oh,
credits.
yeah. I mean, okay, probably, yeah.
I watched credits for
should-
Doctor Who, but for movies, credits I'm
Yeah.
out because credits for movies are like 10 minutes, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
I'm not
sat
down
there
for
for the
that.
entire like 5-6 minutes of this, as I always do. But it was a lot of Russians. I guess they just
5-6 minutes.
got
Wow,
some Russian
on the
studios.
lower end. You watch like a Marvel movie, and the credits are 10 minutes long because they list every graphics artist ever, which I think they should.
And I watch all of those minutes.
Well, because you have to for
every movie.
Marvel, because there's post-credit
Well, no,
scenes.
you can just skip
but
ahead. But I watch the credits for every single movie that I watch.
even if you see it in a theater.
Yeah.
Wow, dedication. I watched the credits for Bohemian Rhapsody because they played Queen music over it, and Queen's my favorite band. If I haven't mentioned that on Triple Play yet, I know I mentioned it on Trust Your Doctor.
Huh.
Love me some
Interesting.
Queen.
I have some things to say about that, but I'm not going to say them.
All right. I mean, the thing is, I grew up listening to Queen because my dad played it all the time, and I think that
Cloudy Division. I'm just kidding.
I don't think that made
Kidding.
them my favorite band, but I think that the music you listen to when you're growing up
Yeah.
affects your
Yeah.
taste in music. So, anyway, I don't have anything else to say about this.
Yeah, me neither. Don't recommend it.
I'm glad I watched it just to know the story, I guess. No, but now I have to go look up all
based
the
on a true
differences.
story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it is, right? Like we talk about like biopics, documentaries, and no matter how true to life they are, the rhetorical nature of a movie is still going to result in.
Well, they also
based
always
on the
like
true
water
story.
it down for audiences because
Dumb it down a little bit.
I mean, you're joking, but like, I think a biopic and a documentary caters to different audiences, and I think a biopic caters to a more casual audience than a straight documentary.
Sure.
And I think because of that, they do maybe dilute the story a little bit. They did with Imitation Game, for example. They kind of really downplayed the fact that Alan Turing was gay.
I heard that's what they did in the Freddie Mercury one as well.
They did that as well. Yeah, they really downplayed like the AIDS diagnosis, and that's actually this is an interesting kind of sidebar. That's the reason why Sacha Baron Cohen left the project. I don't know if you know this, but he originally was going to play Freddie Mercury because it was originally supposed to be a Freddie Mercury movie, but Brian May and Roger Tyler, who are the two remaining members of Queen, wanted it to be more a movie about Queen, so they wanted to downplay a lot of those things about Freddie's life, and that's why Sacha Baron Cohen actually left the project.
Interesting.
So, anyway, you can reach us at thedoctordecadavegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Chuck, if you've watched it. Not the TV show. Chuck podcast when.
You can send us.
You can send us your thoughts on the
Chuck
TV
as
show
well.
too.
It's fine.
I've watched it and I really enjoyed it. Chuck podcast when. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Dog. Triple Play. Forgot what podcast this was for a second. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Triple Play. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook. Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And like we mentioned last time, next time we're watching Trolls 1, 2, and 3. Until then, the end.